Opening January 1st, 1914, the Healy Hotel was built by J.T. Booker, a U.S.-born businessman, and M.C. Healy of Toronto to service the economic boom of 1912, similar to the boom you see in Swift Current today.
My grandfather was a Southerner. He was from Kentucky, and he probably had been around larger hotels, and well, I know he had. He stopped in Chicago, and the Palmer House was there, and it was a very, very, very fancy, very elegant hotel. And I think he decided that maybe Swift Current was going to boom, and it was ready for that kind of a hotel.
Reputed to be one of the best hotels in Saskatchewan, they used only the best in materials for its construction and decor. From terrazzo flooring and solid oak desks in the lobby, to some of the more interesting pieces that could be found in the guest rooms.
Not all the rooms had baths. In those days, there was a public bathroom, and it had a tub and a sink and a toilet in it. And at the foot of the bed, that was where they had their thunder mugs.
More than just a hotel housing elegant guests, it also housed the Booker family itself. It was where J.T. raised his son Ridge, and where Ridge in turn raised his own 3 daughters, of whom the oldest was Mary Bell.
There wasn't any interaction with too many of the guests. I could say good morning. It was always good morning, yes sir, no sir, and you didn't run in the halls, and you definitely never used the elevator. You had legs, you can walk upstairs. I liked it because I liked all the people, and I liked the staff. The staff were really, really special people.
Given her own guest room, right down the hall from her sister's, in an area of the hotel reserved for live-in staff members, Mary Bell ate her meals in the opulent formal dining room, served by staff dressed in black formal uniforms, and she was the envy of many of her schoolmates.
It was fun, but you see, I'd always eaten in the dining room, and every Friday, I had another friend who, every Friday until they moved away, we took turns going to each other's houses for dinner. And she'd come to my house, and I always felt it was quite unfair because she could order anything off the menu, and at her house we always had boiled eggs. So I found that I liked my place better.
As things changed, so too did the guests that frequented the hotel once the effects of the Depression hit.
There were a lot of commercial travelers. They'd come out. There were travelers that came out on Monday and they left on Friday, and there were the T2T travelers. They came on Tuesday and went home on Thursday, and they were the ones that were supposed to stay till Friday, but they left early.
But money for luxuries was sparse in those days. So while few Swift Current residents had the resources to dine in the hotel's expansive dining room, the hotel soon filled another niche in the city as the gathering place for a majority of the city's clubs and organizations.
And we, of course, had all the meetings, many of the meetings, because we had the rooms. We had the private dining room, and if it was a huge meeting, after we closed the main dining room down. Well, we had Mondays at 12:15 we had Rotary, Friday at 12:15 we had Kiwanis. We had the Lions. We had the Quota Club for the Lab. It was a women's organization. We had dances in the main dining room, and the first dance of the season was the Beta Sigma Phi dance.
It was also the premier spot for any prominent visitors to the city. For if you were a somebody staying in the city of Swift Current, the Healy was the place to stay. With such notable figures as former premiers William Patterson and Tommy Douglas, Canadian poet and novelist Bliss Carman, and Father Athol Murray of Wilcox, who brought with him his infamous hockey team, the Hounds of Notre Dame. But when business for the Healy Hotel began to slow, it was the RAF to the rescue.
When the RAF came, yes, it did change quite a few things, because these were young English men. They were very, very that were accustomed to going to pubs and were accustomed to going out to eat. And some of them were pretty raunchy, but most of them were very nice.
With the RAF helping them through the Depression years, the real trouble for the Healy began when the Booker family grew tired of battling over the continued ban of mixed drinking between men and women. Following Prohibition, while the Healy had always had a beer parlor, it was a place reserved only for men. With times changing, the Bookers felt strongly that the rules banning mixed drinking should change too.
Things became quite heated in Swift Current. The churches, except for our own church, were against the mixed drinking, and they talked about it from all the pulpits. Of course, it was defeated.
With Moose Jaw, Gull Lake, and many other towns and cities in the area having approved mixed drinking, business at the Healy began to dry up until the Bookers felt that they had little choice but to sell the hotel in November of 1960.
Now, if you can imagine that the city of Swift Current doesn't have mixed drinking, but Moose Jaw does, Gull Lake does, every other place in the area does except Swift Current. And it was very, very disappointing. We were, to say the least, devastated. So we decided maybe after a couple of 3 years that it was time to sell.
In the years following, a lack of care and diligence resulted in the hotel's deterioration, until the city of Swift Current became its reluctant owners. In 1989, the glory days of the Healy Hotel came to an abrupt and final end. Reduced to a pile of rubble, the site was soon after converted into a parking lot.
When it was gone, and I came home and saw it was gone, I was really devastated. And I went down there one day, and I had to park my car in where my old bedroom was, and I thought, oh, I can't do this. And so I moved the car, and it just felt strange. It really was a landmark, not just to Swift Current people, but latterly when I was there, many times the people from Pennant, or the people that came into Swift Current from Gull Lake or Shaunavon, they'd have their kids meet them at the hotel, and it was quite safe, and the hotel was there for the music festival, and they could stay there, and it had been a part of the areas even as far west as Maple Creek. It had been a part of growing up here and of the growth.
Walking by this spot today, you'd never know it was once the site of a grand hotel. You'd never know that this was once the place where the people of Swift Current gathered, where business deals were made, and where fellowship and service to the community was strengthened. A place where newcomers were first welcomed, where romances bloomed, and families gathered for celebrations. Although it may be impossible to measure the true impact of the Healy Hotel, its legacy can be seen throughout the Southwest. The building may be gone, but its history is not forgotten.